I'm insanely biased, and I think the events have higher ROI.
Yeah.
It can be 24 months when I want to create an event. I want to value your time. You know, the true value is not the cost of, you know, the sponsorships, the booths, the dinners. It's do you want to spend 2 days of your time? Yeah. One of the coolest things from being in the room, the global room, is hearing what people are saying. Sometimes it's just having 4 hours where you can just speak to people without an agenda.
Welcome to The Local, where we talk to and host the best people from in and around the crypto scene, particularly on focusing on people building in London, as we are at Low Tech and with The Local. Today I'm joined by Harry Horsfall from Flight3 and producer of Zebu, I think it's fair to say. Is that right, Harry? Community manager.
Yeah.
All-round nice guy out in the community the whole time. Harry, for those who haven't met you before or heard what you guys do with Flight3 and obviously Zebu, and what does a day look like for you normally in and around crypto?
What is it? Well, thanks for having me at
Pleasure.
your cool studio. I've been to a lot of Stephen's events, and they're kind of famous in London now. Like,
he's got the rep. He's up there.
So much so that. But yeah, look, a day in the life of crypto. It's just super varied. I think. So Flight3 is now 5.
Wow.
5 years. So we're a bootstrapped Web3 marketing agency.
Yeah.
And you know, I think I got to do a lot of. I think as we're moving, marketing agencies kind of get a bit of a bad rep, don't they? People think
you do. You guys get a bad rep. I feel bad for you. And market makers get a worse rep. Like, yeah, I think on the ranking of people who get bad reps in around crypto, marketing's above market makers. And I feel the pain.
And I think that's because like right at the start, like what were we marketing? And I think when we look at sort of what people need, it's really sort of storytelling and like breaking down, you know, which comes into like social events, growth and design, and those sort of 4 buckets. We're lucky enough to work with some really cool projects. Obviously the market has been a bit, since October,
bit tricky,
but what we're seeing is like a bit of maturity in the market. And
that's right.
If you're a big global player, you're not really that phased on what level the price of the token is. You got a 5-year roadmap. It's
commitment to the space, commitment to the technology, and you know, we're here for the long run type thing. And then you need a marketing team to work with you.
Yeah.
Was Flight3 always going to be just crypto focused, or have you gone beyond there as well?
Yeah, I think it's a really good question. Obviously, like with AI happening, there's like 2 questions, isn't there? Like, do you need marketing?
Right. I think for sure.
Or can Claude just do it? And I mean, the answer to that is like you definitely do need an agency. And I think we've always, you know, we are a Web3 focused agency, but like, what is Web3? Well, Web3 is like new frontier tech.
Yep.
So I think, and obviously, you know, every time I write a new playbook, 2021, I write a playbook most years of like what's working, what my strategy. By the time I've written it, it's out of date.
Right.
So the only constant that we've seen over the last, I mean, I've been marketing in the space for 10 years now, so 8 years. So like, what works and what you're allowed to say happens so quickly. So I think, you know, I saw a great quote that is kind of, it's a bit like a game of chess. We know what the end goal is. Yeah. We have no idea what sequence we're going to play it. So I think for us, trying to learn, trying to experiment, and that makes it super varied. In that, you know, one moment you're launching a sort of a tiny startup with a 6-man team. The next moment you're working with a huge blue chip business. Yeah. Both complete, very different issues. Capital is just a resource, isn't it? You know, like we saw with Blockbuster, they had all the capital in the world. It wasn't capital that destroyed them. It was
something out of the blue. Yeah,
it was they didn't. You know, they could have bought Netflix. They didn't buy Netflix. They didn't change, and that capital wasn't the blocker. And we definitely see that in marketing. And you know, why I guess founder-led marketing is so cool because no one can outwork a founder. No one can sort of be there more authentically about their project than a founder. Obviously, you're not going to compete with Binance on budget because they've probably got the biggest, not that they can spend it in the UK.
That point about authenticity is a good one, though, as well, because you must see this with the storytelling that you do with projects and clients. When you hit that sort of ephemeral quality of authenticity, it always resonates a lot more, right? And it's hard to get, and sometimes you try and do it and you ham it up and it ends up coming out all odd and stilted. But we've seen, certainly in what we've tried to do recently, getting people together and doing things in a way that's not downbeat or not flashy, but just being genuine and putting your message out in a way that is less foot forward and more people coming to you and understanding what you guys are about.
Yeah, because I mean, like, I started my sort of journey building a music festival.
Okay, this is cool.
And
is that pre-Flight3?
Yeah, Flight3. I think I sold it in 2016.
Tell me about that. That sounds really good.
And that grew out of like a club nights in Exeter, and they got bigger and bigger, and then we ran out of space. So we're like, let's take over a whole field.
Okay.
And it's like, I guess I was in charge of selling tickets to that, but I wasn't selling tickets. I was just like, this is what's going to be there. This is why you have to be there.
Yeah.
It's called Hijacked, and it's still actually going. So that makes me really happy.
That's
that
awesome.
I'm still sorting guest lists for like brothers of brothers of brothers.
Yeah.
All these years later, and festival's a glorified word for like end of uni sort of day party. But it was an amazing learning, and like when you're creating something that you generally really like, and you would go to it yourself, and I think that's the interesting thing for me at the moment as we look at what does TradFi mean, what does institutional mean. Every product I've built has always been for me, what I've used. I built a DeFi startup, and I've worked in exchanges, so like the Web3 aspect is very clear. But I think when you are authentic and when you bring people together, the festival days were some of the best days. It sounds glamorous though, but there's a lot of like moving around fences and all sorts of different, lots of people calling you up being like, I left my glasses. Have you seen?
It's like, this is a 50-acre field.
50-acre field.
Okay, we can try.
We can try find them.
That's amazing. And so was it a straight transition for you from organising festivals into Flight3? And was Zebu at the beginning of Flight3? And for people who don't know, sort of introduce them to Zebu as well.
Yeah, so the festival led me to crypto in the sense that so B2C events where there's no sponsors and we're just selling tickets, has about an 84% break-even point.
Wow.
So when you're
in terms of capacity,
so at 84%, you normally break even if you're efficient with your spending. Yeah. And so that last 16% is the margin. Yeah. But obviously when you go from a 1,000 person show to a 5,000-6,000 person show, the 84% becomes a lot higher. Yep. And we all know everyone's last minute, aren't they? So everyone loves to rock up, buy the ticket, and then that's why it's all tiered. And so that led me to support the festival. Well, I was on a very, very low salary to support the festival when it was going through the growth. I went and got a role in a VC. Yeah. I was their sort of event manager. Okay. And that's when they were like, can we organise a tech event? Can you run a Bitcoin event? Yeah. That's when I met my mentor and good friend, Paul Gordon, who was running CoinScrum. There's a name. Which was the UK's first Bitcoin meetup. Yeah. This was when it was a few sort of, this is like we just got back from the Palace of Versailles. Like we definitely weren't in the Palace of Versailles.
in a pub around the corner.
In a pub around the corner, like proper, real like Bitcoin focus. And that's when I was like, wow, this is it, and 2013. And as I was just fully like, I studied economics and politics. And I'd used Bitcoin before this without really knowing what it was. So that was the moment where I was just like, oh my,
this is amazing.
Why, you know that moment when you're like trying to corner, this slightly annoying Bitcoin is trying to like corner you to be like, you need to be involved in this right now. And obviously, Mt. Gox happened in 2014. Yeah. So I think from the $300 it went to 1,000, straight back to 90, and I kind of carried on with life. I was doing a New Entrepreneur Foundation sort of course. I was at Betfair, which was really fun, managing all the sponsorships. Quite a good way to be popular in a big company
doing all the events.
If you're allocating the tickets to
Yeah.
the Arsenal or the Barca box. But no, so that was it was quite funny. We'd present the horse racing and be like, Harry Horsfall to prevent the Betfair.
So nice.
And so that sort of phase, and then lots of different startup phase. It was actually quite a tricky phase because I think when you're kind of being an entrepreneur and you're a mid-weight marketer, no one wants your mid-weight marketer to come in and be like, I've got the big idea.
Yeah. I want you to be the marketer.
Yeah, I'm filling the spreadsheet and the data sheet and just like do it. And so like learning that stage, being quite dyslexic, was quite an interesting journey. But when I look back on it, doing lots of different roles and sort of it was all good training and seeing the different things.
Rounding out experiences and
2016 happened, and Bitcoin sort of back to its 2013, 14 highs, and I was like, oh my god, you know that feeling where you're like looking, do I have my wallet?
Yep. You have.
Have I?
You check the next day and it's still there.
Have I stored it? And so remember the local. I think when you look at a product like Revolut and how quickly people can onboard now, local Bitcoins was such a scary sort of sending it in escrow, doing a balance transfer,
meeting people in person in hotels.
So that moment came, and I think at that point I love festivals, but that was kind of the natural point. And so 2016, but of course in 2017, I don't know if you remember trying to sign up to exchanges.
Yeah.
There was no on Fido.
Yep.
When in that sort of ICO, but everyone was trying to get in, and so there weren't many marketing jobs. Actually, I was running an event for Brett Hobbiton, who made lastminute.com.
Right.
At Founders Factory, and I saw Nick. Founder of blockchain.com, and I was like, Nick, oh my god, I love blockchain.com, give me any role. And he was like, listen, I can't give you a role, we just need engineers at the moment, but I will take you for coffee and I will help you sort of get into the industry. But it took about a year to find a role, because at that time, it was very product and dev led industry.
Yeah, of course. It was all like engineers, white papers, ICOs. There wasn't the sort of structure around it that there is now, right?
There wasn't the structure, and there wasn't the sort of funnels.
Yep.
When I look in some of what we've done in Web 2 marketing, and then I look at some of the requests, like I want 100,000 people in their Discord.
Yeah.
Well, what country? What are they going to do? What's the lifetime value? What's the acquisition value of there's no point in having attention if we don't know what we want that attention to do, or retention, because reactivation is the most expensive form of marketing.
Yeah, of course.
You're so busy. You're all going to Cannes and all these different events. You've got 10 meetings. And 10,000 apps. If you downloaded an app and it's broken at phase 1, in your head,
gone.
So to get you excited about that,
Very hard. Yeah.
5 times the cost of getting you to download it the first time.
Wow, okay.
So I think at that time, and then I saw an article saying Luna was growing really quickly, and at that time they were like hiring a lot of they've always been a very thorough company, like very trust based. They're sort of the Coinbase of Africa.
They were, I remember them. I mean, it was one of the first venues I interacted with, and I was always impressed by the level of due diligence on the way in as a user of the platform.
Yes.
Certainly compared to the rest of the space at that time.
You're
you're going above and beyond here, guys. You're making a rod for your own back. But
yes,
they're in
that tough sort of cycle when there was no compliance.
Yeah.
They wanted to be compliant, but so it was hard for them to do what the bigger exchanges did in adding everything before that. But at that time, they were really trying to hire big fang type employees who were and they were very well. Very good compensation. And then I called them up and I was like, please, can I join? They're like, wow.
This is what is very enthusiastic.
And so that was an amazing journey, going from 30 people to 1,000.
That is,
and just seeing, because the interesting part about marketing at the space in 2018 is compared to sort of now when you watch the Super Bowl and you've got 5 exchanges running brand-led ads.
All the Premier League teams with
all the Premier League teams,
Formula One with
Formula One. Is that you couldn't do brand-led marketing
because people didn't know them.
Because what is a wallet? What is Bitcoin?
So the basic education needed.
As well. So we had to do a lot of education, this is what Bitcoin is.
Yeah.
This is what a wallet is. This is why it's secure. This is how it works. So there was a lot of couldn't just go like as you say, like Kraken on the side of a shirt. Now you recognize that logo, you know what it means, and you know what you may not even know what a wallet is, but you know kind of what you want to get out of it. So I think that phase of marketing in the time was really about education.
Interesting.
Which, like, there's still a lot of education, and obviously Luno is very much mass market B2C product. It's obviously got some Insta and some more advanced features, but its primary sort of audience is very, very, very B2C, your average sort of users. So I think that evolution in the last few years has been amazing.
And did you work with Luna? You've helped them, or did they say yes when you called them up and said, "Yeah, can I have a job?" And was that pre Flight3, or did Flight3 come out of your time there?
That was pre Flight3.
Okay.
So that was I was working really fun company actually. We made indestructible phone cases called Mouse.
Okay.
So we used to throw the phones out of the helicopters and make amazing viral ads. And I remember got a helicopter, and it would be like Black Friday was like the day for us. The whole that every company. I was thinking there's tube strike today in London. I'm just thinking the line marketing team must be like, and I've never seen so many people online. But so that taught me a lot about performance marketing in sort of e-commerce is amazing. To for a phone case at the time, on the average phone case on the market was $9. And ours was $60, and we were spending $30 on marketing.
Wow.
You could really target. And when we look back, or even today, we still don't quite have that ability to target crypto users in the same way. Like, do they have an iPhone? Yes. Do they live in a certain area? Yes. And then we still don't quite have that level of target.
That last step of like, have they got MetaMask installed?
Have they got Meta? We still don't quite have that level of sophistication. It's been a nightmare just even trying to get paid ads running without because of the scammers and the fake. I mean, you got to be so careful, don't you? Even people that work in the industry, that the amount of phishing links.
I mean, we get it all the time, and we constantly have to remind the team here, and I have to get reminded as well. I'm pretty convinced that I've been on VCs with people from North Korea over the last year, pretending to be VCs, talking to us, like getting on a video conference, and the person on the other end has managed to convince me that I need to talk to them because we've been raising in the past. And, early calls are always sort of one-on-one person, what do you do? Where do you come from? And, what's your product and where's the business going? And there's one over the last year. Yeah, it's just so many scams in the space.
So that stage was quite interesting. But Luna was an amazing growth. In COVID, the cool thing about Luna is we were in the sort of central hub.
Yeah.
And I loved learning from the CEO, the CMO, and really watching how they were scaling. Because companies break at, it's like a leap, isn't it? 8, 24, 64, 150. Trying to scale at that sort of speed, and that was amazing to watch it grow and flow.
And was it all in an office? Or?
All in an office, but like half in Cape Town, half in London. Half and a decentralized global sort of team, but
two main hubs.
And I think in COVID, as I got further away from it, I kind of been there for a good amount of time, and I kind of got that itch. And obviously this is 2021, so we came up with an idea to make a non-punitive prediction market. So you could bet what the price of Bitcoin, or place your prediction of what the price of Bitcoin would be. And if you were right, you'd win a Bitcoin prize. If you were wrong, you would just get a staking reward.
Okay.
But it didn't work because I don't know if you remember the time, but gas transaction fees
expensive.
Were like you were getting $20 in staking rewards from your prediction.
But it costing you $40 to get to send it to you.
$40 in and $40 out. And so, but out of that, which was, I was totally I'm going to do this side project, try to get involved in DeFi and play around with it. that kind of went a lot bigger than I expected. And then when that finished, people were like, oh, can you help me with my project? Yeah. And so there was Zebu is a bull from Africa.
Okay.
And Zebu means always bullish, zero bullshit.
Yeah.
And so Zebu Digital was kind of the company that we formed, and it was a crazy time. It was a time when everyone was, the advancement from
21 was nuts. 22 was nuts. And it was nice. It was a good time because people, like you say, were helping each other out. It was like there was a lot of innovation going on, a lot of experimentation with we've got now capability to do stuff on chain that we didn't have before, particularly we don't have within the Bitcoin ecosystem. But now we have this distributed virtual computer that we can build all these things on. And people were spinning up stuff left, right, and center. It was mad.
it was that, like, we moved away from we all remember 2017 when you just got sent a one-page website with an ETH wallet, and we moved. And what we're seeing now, obviously, is people are like building their prototypes.
Yep.
Long. Whereas that was a stage where DeFi was starting to work. The Bitcoiners were looking on a bit like, oh my God, what's that? So obviously we got Bitcoin. I was with Dan Howden. He was saying Bitcoin DeFi is coming.
It's coming. It's happening. It's gonna happen.
But it's a bit slower, and whereas this was always built to get there.
Yeah.
And that was one of those stages. So it was one of those wild times where we were growing. The space was growing. We're still learning.
What was Zebu at that time? And was it Zebu before Flight3?
So we were Zebu Digital before we got acquired in 2023.
Yeah.
And then we became sort of a subsidiary of Flight Story.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I love the name Zebu. We spent a lot of time thinking. We went for about 3,000. Because I love branding. When we think of Hijack Festival, could sound aggressive, but really, if you know the brand and you followed it, it means end of summer, exciting, taking over unique venues. Like sometimes when we look at some of what things that are very obviously, you need an obvious name, but until you don't, and like sometimes when if you're called NFT NYC, it's going to be a tricky year this year because you're stuck with that. So I like building brands around, there's obviously a company called Bullish, but that's like very obvious what it is. So I like the subtle reference, but so we're scaling that, and it was wild because I think we were working with people that hadn't always used agencies. When you work with big companies, a lot of our managers at those companies now have sold their agency or worked in an agency. They know sort of like what, I always say, like, our role is we're hardworking, we're passionate, and we can get things like 95, 96% of the way there. That last 3, 4, 5, 6% of magic has to come from the founders. Yeah. It's your project, you're the ones that, and, I think agencies can help a lot, but one of the things is they haven't drunk the Kool-Aid.
Yep.
And I think if you're building this amazing market-making platform, and there's so many other market-making platforms, if you went to your mentors or advice, they'd be like, why are you different?
Yeah.
Like what and you have to have that almost delusional belief that you can push through the regulations, the ups and downs of managing people,
and the competition,
and you do need to be. I do think to be a good founder, you do need to be a little bit delusional. You need
completely delusional, overly optimistic,
and you're giving up your weekends, you're giving up your stable life. Government's just cut entrepreneur relief, mental, but there's no guarantee. So I think seeing that, and what was so exciting to me is if I wasn't chatting to these people who were very in the industry, I'd probably be reading about them on Reddit. So I didn't. It felt like one of those moments where you're like,
I'm in the right place.
I'm learning and I always say, so like, been in the space for quite a while, but I'm a marketeer. I'm not a dev. I'm not a tech, and so.
But you're a builder though, Harry. Like, you've built stuff, right? There's a consistent theme through everything. You're like trying, experimenting, building, moving on, trying, experimenting, learning, building, moving on. That's considered. Just listening to you talk, that's clear as well. So maybe you might not label it as an entrepreneur, but I mean, we call it being a builder because everyone here has to take charge and do a bit of building. It's clear that you've got that for sure.
And I think it meant that like when I think people have opened up more to marketing and storytelling and community in a bigger, because community is not about having a Telegram group to sell out an ICO or an IDO. It's about sort of shared experiences. You know, I think a festival is an amazing example of a community in the sense, quite actually similar to a crypto in the sense that you've got your hard tech guys that are doing the things. They're like Solidity devs. You've got your KOLs and big names. They're the DJs. You've got your admins. They're selling the ticket. You know, everyone's
got to have the right mix.
Yeah, everyone's coming together to create something that didn't exist.
Yeah.
And I think that that early stage, trying to talk to technical people and I like to call it like an iceberg. You know, if you told me about how your nodes are doing you're executing your trades 3 seconds faster and you're stopping MEV, and if I'm in the right headspace for that information, please tell me. But how are you telling me what you're doing? One sentence, you know, right at the top of the iceberg. And especially when we're online and everyone's so busy.
Saturated. Yeah.
Just hammering people with real bottom of funnel information. And it's like, how am I going to engage you and take you on that journey? And that's not in one touch point often.
And Zebu has always been London-based, always building in and around London. Obviously, we're in a global industry. But what's kept you here? Because in my eyes, like Web3 marketing, you could easily see teams just going off to the Middle East, easily teams like going out to Singapore and Asia. But you stuck true to UK and London. What's kept you here?
Yeah, we were London maxing for
a long time before it was a thing.
It's genuinely been really, really tough. You know, we have major, in a global market when Binance can spend 20 million on token or 15 million on token, you know, there's only been about 150 firms that can sponsor UK events. Yeah. They're obviously shrewd because they're the only ones registered and are allowed to sort of be involved, and it means that it stops our goal was always to get London. I honestly believe, you know, I've spent a lot of time talking to policymakers and working with policymakers, and I really implore them to make this opportunity happen.
Sorry to interrupt. You're quite involved with Stand with Crypto, right?
Yeah. So we're a small part of Stand with Crypto, and it's been amazing. It's 50, 100 companies coming together, trying to get our voice, because the policymakers are actually brilliant.
Yeah.
They have got a million different policies to deal with.
Yep.
And as an industry, a lot of the time, we don't know what people are saying. And so how we get the right smart people talking to the policymakers.
Right, okay.
You know, because obviously in 22 or through whenever Rishi was here, he was like, we're going to make blockchain come to London. Obviously then he was unable to make that happen. And, you know, we've got the talent, we've got the time zone, and we've got significant capital.
Yep.
But we've been a little bit hampered, and, you know, there's no stat that makes it higher than, I think there's $40 million of volume on GB stablecoins.
Yep.
And there's 300 billion
Billions,
on USDC.
Yeah.
And so I think that reflection sums up that, you know, like the 2027 plan sounds promising. It's obviously, you know, if we look at, you mentioned the Middle East, they obviously got it very quickly.
Yeah.
They want to diversify out of oil quite quickly and aggressively, and they're like, wow, boom, we can store energy in this. Like it makes sense. And so I think, but that being said, you know, I do love living in London, and it's like if you had all the time, and, you know, I always say to entrepreneurs that I invest in or back, like, what would you do if money didn't matter? And actually, like, living in London is really, despite phone thieves, is actually a pretty cool city to live in.
I agree. Like, I've done a fair bit of traveling, not in the last year or so, out with our business, talking to people at conferences. And I enjoy traveling. Like, I enjoy seeing different cities and different cultures. It's like, you know, like a lot of people, I find it refreshing. and actually come back usually quite energized from those trips. I went to New York, I think, for the first time in 15 years recently, and I remembered how much I love that city. Like I just love, I'm quite sort of restricted on it. I've only really ever been properly explored across Manhattan. Of course, there's other bits to go and see. But there's an energy there and a vibrancy and just a look. Because I grew up, all my movies were US movies. And like a lot of them were New York based. And so it was always like, everything looks like a movie set, like there the whole time. And there's quite a cool energy that comes from that. But if you ask me what is the best city, maybe not to live in, right? Because London can be quite hard to live in sometimes, but the best city for stuff. Like if you just want to do stuff and like meet people and
travel
and go to nice and so diverse. Like you can sit on top of Primrose Hill and
so diverse, and like as long as you have that escape.
Yeah,
I think if I can afford to live in London with a family, get the space, because obviously it's very expensive. But if you can, I think London's got that. Spend quite a lot of time in Cape Town still from the Luno days, and I'm building a sort of like a Shoreditch House style members club up there called Wonderland. Nice. So we've taken over a really cool house. Yeah. And it's growing. We've gone from 8 members to 81.
Wow.
In a year, and that's a
lot of growth across the year.
That is really, really, and because we're not trying to pack it, we're trying to get the right members to sort of, mixture of. That's outside of crypto, but it's a mixture of entrepreneurs, artists, etc. All sort of trying to give value back around this house and this community, and Cape Town is so tempting.
Yeah,
I love it there so much.
Yeah.
But if you want to, we just came back from Paris Blockchain Week. If you want to pop to Paris, you're not getting the train home in 3 hours door to door.
So I did it. I did a day trip. I had a lunch meeting that I'd promised one of the BDs here that I'd be there, and I couldn't quite work out to stay the night before or stay the night after. So I was like, there's no reason. I can get up, get the train early, can do the meeting. Had a great meeting with them at the Louvre, hopped on the train, and I was home in time for bedtime. And it was like, okay, that's possible.
I think policy is such a driver, isn't it? If we, smoking, they've got it down from 50% to 9%. And I just saw today that if you are born after 2009, you're never going to be old enough to buy cigarettes.
Yeah.
So that is a good example of a positive policy. I do think the one thing is we've got to make sure that it's an exciting place for entrepreneurs to build. The flywheel that we create. The jobs, the events, the spending of the corporate cards, and all of that flywheel. Just really hope we protect that excitement. And in a global world, it is. It's not just about the Brits that are going to Dubai. It's my friend had filled out her application. She runs 2 businesses. She was going to go to the UK, pay the 12 grand, go through all of that headache, and then they made a few changes. She's just like, I can't be bothered for it. And she has gone to Dubai, and so I think that level of talent that does bring in a lot of revenue is coming for a bit. It's scary if we lose that, because we're almost in that middle state.
We've had a lot of London maxing on the timeline over the last 3 or 4 months, which has been great. And this week, we've seen a lot of news come out about AI in particular, sort of frontier tech, in terms of people being very positive on the UK and London, the big AI companies sort of opening offices and funding rounds for UK-based talent and stuff, which is great. But obviously, it's a huge year for crypto in London as well, because we've got Breakpoint here at the end of the year.
Yeah,
what's the DAS again? What's the plan for Zebu this year? Is that happening?
So at the moment, I'm launching the Crypto Padel League.
Okay,
it's been
you're behind that, are you?
Insane.
I'd seen that come through. What's the sign-ups like?
So we've had 50 or 60 companies apply.
Seriously,
and it's just mad. So I'm launching it in Dubai, Singapore, Sydney, New York, and London.
Okay.
I love paddle. I sponsor the UK #1 paddle player.
Yeah.
So it's just a great. We got an amazing club in King's Cross. So that's Zebu is in the works.
Yeah.
It's going to be going to announce soon. Kind of what's happening. I think this year is a very focused event. I think when we wanted to create, because we moved from saying the UK's biggest crypto event to the UK's flagship, and I think I always want to, when I want to create an event, I want to value your time. You know, the true value is not the cost of, you know, the sponsorships, the booths, the dinners. It's do you want to spend 2 days of your time at this, and what is that audience? And I think when we look at the audience and how the community is evolving, there's actually very different sort of before, you know, in this first event in 2013. Do you not think I'm mad because Bitcoin is happening? Yes, let's all hang out, let's all help each other. You know, when you have such a broad spectrum of people coming together, sort of understanding the audience is like a thing that I really want to do to make sure that we create the value.
Everyone's getting something that they want.
And like the room is the right room.
Yeah.
And so I'm very with Solana coming, and you know they have mega budgets. They're taking over Olympia, which is going to be epic,
insane,
which has just been redeveloped.
Yeah, I was going to say I haven't seen it since it's.
Yeah.
Has it been finished? I guess I don't know.
Haven't. I've only seen the sort of the sort of pictures.
The mock-ups and the drawings.
I haven't seen, but it looks epic, and I think that is quite a community focused. And then DAS is very insto focused.
Mm-hmm.
So around that sort of time, working out how we do and where we see the space evolving. You know, I think I still think I've got a few mega people I want to book. I love.
Do you have a wish list?
Oh, no, I've got the wish. Some people on the wish list I've been pinging for 7 you know, but the cool thing about crypto and the digital asset space is it's still very much like underground music.
Yeah.
If CZ and Adam Back walk into a random London bar, everyone will be like,
people aren't going to know that.
Who are those guys? Like they're just having a, you know, and it's very similar to if you actually know the DJs behind underground music. A lot of people may recognise their name on a poster, but most
in the street
won't know their faces. And so I still think actually why RL events are so amazing is if you know who you want to speak to, they will hang around after their panel. They still are at a stage where they're excited. And I think sometimes as a space we're also heads down, we've got pressure from VCs, we've got pressure from the market to build. Actually, when you go meet the other people, you're like, we are actually trying to do something positive for society.
We talk about it as the dopamine effect, like the conference dopamine effect, because I think, you know, as a business, we've been to probably 10, 11 conferences around the world now, and it's hard to pick any of them that we've come back from or whoever's come back from and gone, I didn't have a great time, or that wasn't worthwhile. And sometimes, yes, there's great business that comes from it. Sometimes there's great connections that come from it. Sometimes you have great connections, great conversations, and you might not get any business immediately, or nothing might come of it. But then you meet them again at another event, and then again at another event, and it's all more of a slow burn. And so, particularly in an industry where a lot of the talent is distributed and maybe working from home, it's nice to have those centers of gravity that pull people together.
Yeah, definitely for the remote teams. You know, we work with projects where they've never even met each other,
right?
You know, and which is cool for an agency. So it almost means you slot in like a team member.
Yeah,
you know, it's not like you're all sitting in an office. And I mean, for me personally, I love offices. I think when you're a small team, the beauty of seeing and chatting and that, and when you're moving really, especially as creatives, you know, because you have the sort of whale in the room moment where obviously you're the most important person in the room in terms of rank. But when we're having creative brainstorms, actually we're
all in.
We're all equal. But if I'm jumping over, oh no, you're speaking.
Yeah, on the video chats it doesn't work, right?
Yeah, so you don't let everyone sort of flow. But to your point, I'm insanely biased. And I think the events have higher ROI.
Yeah,
it can be 24 months. I'm still, you know, you meet someone the first time. You don't need a market maker if you're just in fundraising, let's say, or you don't need an agency if you're in fundraising. You can't afford. But once they've done their fundraising, they've done some dev, then they could be ready. So I think it's. Do you find positive ROI from the events?
Yeah, we don't know how to measure it. But we know that it's there, and it comes from lots of different places. It comes from just general brand recognition. The more we do, the more events we do, the more people we have on the ground, the more when I meet someone, you think, oh yeah, I've heard of you guys, or saw you at so and so, or I went to your side event at Cannes or something like that, and so that's tangible. It's beneficial for us as a business. We don't know how to put a number on it.
No, and that's very hard, and that's what we've seen in London is the Avalanches, Solanas, Ethereums of the world. They don't need to do headline sponsorship anymore because they actually need lower down funnel.
Interesting.
Someone like Canton Network, who is a big institutional player, is doing a lot of cool things. They've only just launched, and so they're doing top of funnel, headline every single.
Interesting.
And by the end of the thing, you've all seen Canton so many times. You're like, oh, I know Canton.
This is a thing.
It's a thing. You still don't necessarily know what that is. I mean, I spent a lot of time trying to come up with different ways to measure it. You can put on impressions, you can put on leads, but really it's one of those magic things. You got to feel right, because
I've stopped stressing about it for that reason.
If we have bad data, we can make bad. This is why. So Stephen talks a lot about this, about like if we're optimizing creative using just pure AI, and it keeps optimizing it to the biggest clicks, suddenly you can have a bad sort of image, but the data,
the numbers are looking really great.
It was bad. It was, and so I think sometimes that's it's definitely one that CFOs have to get behind, don't they? You mean we're sending everyone to Miami? and
what's the ROI on that?
Yeah,
no, don't worry about it. I'll tell you in 24 months.
I think for me, like one of the coolest things from being in the room, the global room, is hearing what people are saying. I think whenever I was booking DJs, I would be on the dance floor asking what track was being released next. Because a lot of things are like pre-hyped, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you're on the floor, you're hearing about Eigenlayer a few years ago. Oh my God, this is going to be, hearing that on the ground, which, because we could chat about Web3 for hours and hours, but everyone's got a full calendar, and so they don't have headspace. So sometimes it's just having 4 hours where you can just speak to people without, maybe I don't have something an agenda to speak to you.
But it's phone in the pocket and just talking to someone as opposed to messaging them or something. Harry, that was fantastic. Thank you very much for your time. We could literally talk for hours and hours about all sorts.
You have to come to Lolu, my new sauna and plunge site in Kentish Town. We'll do
I'll definitely check that out. I assume that's fully naked, yeah?
No, not yet. We're too British for that.
Okay.
We haven't quite hit peak Finland. Wetsuits.
All right. Well, thanks very much for coming and joining me at the local. I really enjoyed it. And everyone, it's Harry Horsfall from Zebu and Flight3. Where can they find you?
I'm on Twitter, Harry Horsfall.
Perfect. Thanks very much. Cheers, mate.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks.